Genesis chapter 30. And thank you, everybody. Thank you, Keith. Thank you, Peters and Reeves families. Reeves family. Peters. And thank you, Crystal Dive. Thank you, Jody, for bringing it, brother. Thank you. You should have done an invitation right there. And seriously, if you get to trust Jesus, you want to know what the newness looks like, you want to know what it means to go from darkness to light, you've seen it this morning. This has been a great celebration, and this is what it's about. But I know all this stuff, look, I mean, you heard it in Jody's family, in his life. It wasn't the pretty little picture. I think sometimes in the church world, in church life, at least the perception of us is that we're the shiny, happy family all the time and everything's just wonderful. Is that the truth? No. Let's just all take a family picture, right? And see what this joker looks like. Well, I want you to look at this family picture in Jacob's family. Now, if you were to take a family picture of this, you've got 2 sister wives, 2 concubines, children that are probably fussing and fighting with each other, and sister wives are competing constantly about babies. And we're going to be looking today at one messed up family. And this is the God, though, who wins over all that. And we're just going to read this. I'm going to make some brief application, and I'm going to invite you to turn to Jesus if you haven't yet. Does that sound good? Chapter 30, verse 1. Let's stand here real quick. Now, when Rachel saw that she bore Jacob no children, she became jealous of her sister, and she said to Jacob, "Give me children, or else I die." Then Jacob's anger burned against Rachel and said, "Am I in the place of God, who has withheld from you the fruit of the womb?" She said, "Here is my maid Bilhah. Bilhah, go into her, that she may bear on my knees, that through her I too may have children." So she gave him her maid Bilhah as a wife, and Jacob went into her, and Bilhah conceived and bore Jacob a son. Then Rachel said, "God has vindicated me, and has indeed heard my voice, and has given me a son." Therefore she named him Dan. Rachel's maid Bilhah conceived again, and bore Jacob a second son. So Rachel said, "With mighty wrestlings I have wrestled with my sister, and I have indeed prevailed." And she named him Naphtali. When Leah saw that she had stopped bearing, she took her maid Zilpah and gave her to Jacob as a wife. There we go. Leah's maid Zilpah bore Jacob a son. Then Leah said, "How fortunate." So she named him Gad. Leah's maid Zilpah bore Jacob a second son. Then Leah said, "Happy am I, for women shall call me happy." So she named him Asher. Now in the days of the wheat harvest, Reuben went and found mandrakes in the field and brought them to his mother Leah. Then Rachel said to Leah, "Please give me some of your son's mandrakes." But she said to her, "Is it a small matter for you to make my husband to take my husband? And would you take my son's mandrakes also?" So Rachel said, "Therefore he may lie with you tonight in return for your son's mandrakes." When Jacob came in from the field in the evening, then Leah went out to meet him in the field. "You must come in to me, for I have surely hired you with my son's mandrakes." So I told you this is messed up, y'all. Right? So he lay with her that night. God gave heed to Leah, and she conceived and bore Jacob of his son. Then Leah said, "God has given me my wages because I gave my maid to my husband." So she named him Issachar. Leah conceived again and bore a sixth son to Jacob. Then Leah said, "God has endowed me with a good gift, and now my husband will dwell with me because I have borne him 6 sons." So she named him Zebulun. Afterwards she bore a daughter and named her Dinah. Then God remembered Rachel, and God gave heed to her and opened her womb. So she conceived and bore a son and said, "God has taken away my reproach." She named him Joseph, saying, "May the Lord give me another son." Father, thank you for your word. Thank you that it changes lives. Thank you that even the parts that are weird and you don't understand, and just doesn't seem like the shiny, happy version of what some portray Christianity to be, God, this is not reality. God, show us what it means in the real world and to us as people. We love you in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. I want you to see some things that happen are happening in our culture. I know this seems so ancient, so old, but this is just like us. The Centers for Disease Control did a basic study between 2007 and 2017. The number of suicides among people ages 10 to 24 suddenly skyrocketed 56%. From 6.8 deaths per 100,000 people to 10.6, according to the Washington Post. Suicide now ranks as the second leading cause of death after accidental deaths. And we're wondering why people are depressed. A lot of it, and you know what happened in 2007, is the advent of two things, the iPhone, right? And Facebook, Twitter, social media, what happened. And what happened as a result was an immediate uptick in comparison. Images and comparison. People comparing themselves constantly to one another. Whether their team was the best, or whether constantly, of course, they were bombarded with sexual images all the time. And so this is something that's just as fresh and real as it was thousands of years ago. That people compare themselves to one another in hopes of feeling more complete and fulfilled. And what we're finding, though, is that more than people compare themselves to each other, they're even more now technologically advanced, it's becoming more and more of an issue, and people are more and more depressed because now they are seeing more and more how deficient we are and helpless and hopeless we are unless we have Jesus. That's one of the great things about the advent of so much interwebs and everything else, is that you have the transmission of the gospel in so many ways, but you're also having it turn into bad situations in families and beyond. And so with this so amplified now, I mean, it's up to 11, right? With this so amplified constantly, I just want to share with just a few things that we see in our lives and our families. That's true for them, it's true for us today, and what we can do about it. First off, that God can use our pain. God can use our pain. You see here, first off, that Rachel is in pain. Of course, Leah was in pain too. And then you have Jacob, who is their husband. I know that's messed up. Jacob was a de facto polygamist. We talked about this before. We've been going through Genesis and just seeing this more and more. Strictly speaking, though, it's not his fault. He was not in it at first. He got tricked into it by his father-in-law Laban. But he's not the first either. He had Lamech, Abraham even. Esau, of course, had 3 wives. But polygamy always has been and always will be against God's will. It starts in Genesis 2:24, that, of course, God gave Eve to Adam, that the two shall become one flesh, not multiple, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's meant and intended to be addressed in marriage. The book of Hosea portrays God as marrying and with one for life. The book of Ephesians, finally, you have Jesus. Jesus calls husbands to love their wives. Those wives being one wife for life, like Christ has loved the church. It's a sacrificial type of love that thinks of her before he thinks of him. And Jacob is just stuck in the middle. He's just, of course, he's the one that just says, okay, whatever, you know. He's not being responsible either. You have Leah, who was in on this at the beginning, and was tricked. She wasn't tricked, but Jacob was tricked, but she was in on it. She wronged her sister, Rachel, who Jacob initially was going to marry. But in spite of her sin, something does happen to Leah, and she does show a trust in God with the naming of each son, with Reuben, whose name means looked upon. My affliction. Simeon, God hears me. Levi, I'm joined. Perhaps I'll be joined to my husband. But all of these first 3 names had something to do with the husband. Finally, we get to Judah, and it's praise. Praise. This is about God this time. I'm praising God for what he's done in my life. But she's still unloved. Sophie Tolstoy, of course, another unloved wife of Tolstoy, famous Leo Tolstoy. She said this: "It is painful about being the unloved wife. It is painful and humiliating. I am nothing but a useless creature with morning sickness, a big belly, 2 rotten teeth, a bad temper, a bad sense of dignity, and a love which nobody wants and which nearly drives me insane." That drives home. And then you have Rachel, who Jacob really loves. And if Leah is unloved, Rachel is unfulfilled. She's the one where she's looking around, everybody else is having baby showers, but it's not her. She wants to bear children, but she can't. Both of them have problems with their pain and what to do about it. Rachel forgets that God was the giver of life. She's not thinking about God. If you read what we just read, you don't see anything about her going to God until right at the end. Much like us. We get in all our fixes and our problems and we try to figure it out. We Google it or we look it up. Or we do whatever we can to figure it out on our own. And then when we really get the pinch, oh yeah, somebody said pray about it. Maybe I'll pray about it. And then Jacob, he gets angry with Rachel because she blamed him. She blamed him. Give me children or else I'll die. Obviously, sweetheart, I'm not the problem. Okay? Now, tell me to get real here, okay? She blamed God. And oftentimes what happens, whenever we're feeling pain, we will look to the person that's closest to us. Because the problem may not be, I may not have a problem with Will, right? That Will didn't cause this, but because he's close enough to me, I'm going to take it out on him. Right? And this is guys and girls. This is not just a male-female thing, right? But really, who does she really have a big problem with? Who does Rachel really have a big problem with? God. It's God. We've got to be careful what we do with our pain. We'll sin against other people in our pain, and we'll look to the husband, to the wife. We'll blame our children. God, if you can give me these children. We'll blame the pastor or the youth pastor. We'll blame the teacher. Instead of going, you know what? I'm where I'm at because it's the hand of God. Because clearly in this passage and so many other passages, we said one earlier when we're dedicating children, children are a gift from who? That's right. The Lord gives us children. But despite all this, we have the beginning of the mighty 12 tribes of Israel is coming out of all this. God is going to use this in history and forever. Also, just real quick, you know whose names are posted on the 12 gates of the new heaven and new earth? These messed up people we just read about. God's going to use them in a big, big way. We're going to find out they're going to do terrible things. But that's what, if you heard it in Jody's testimony, if you heard it, if you know Keith, if you know anybody, if you heard Josh's testimony last week, God will change people's lives.
Amen.
And we're so much in the judgment business nowadays. We're already casting people off, putting people in the corner. We've already got them sized up one way down the other. We forget that God's a God who works over time. And He's a God who works in process. What's your problem? We all got one. We've all got pain also. We just need to learn how to handle it and hopefully not like these people. So what happens though? What happens with our pain? Well, God can use not just our pain, but He can use it for His glorious purpose, even though we may not see it all at the moment. Right? Hopefully we'll stop in our pain when we're hurting, emotionally, spiritually, of course physically. The last thing we want to do is sit for a second and go, okay, God, speak to my heart. What does He want me to say? Because if we're not careful, pain can lead to something else. It may make you desperate. God can use even our desperation because people get desperate in this. Pain can lead to desperation, and that's when we have a choice. We have a choice whenever we're in hard pain, what to do with that pain. And again, the Lord's good to us at times. God can use our desperation. The Lord's good to us at times because He'll show us examples of people not to follow. Right? Have you ever had that boss, or maybe that teacher, or maybe the older brother, or the older sister, and mom and dad said, okay, whatever they're doing, don't do that, right? I think that's what God's doing here in our lives for us to see. It said here, barren Rachel, this is Kent Hughes, felt increasingly diminished by her sister's successes. Thus we have two desperate women, one desperate for love, and the other desperate for children. Oh, the joys of polygamy. Rachel decides to take matters into her own hands. We know this continues on, that they have a strange arrangement with Bilhah, the handmaid, and of course, the same thing happened with Leah. But here's the aim. So it said this, the aim is to show, Piper said this, the aim is to show that sin and evil, no matter how spectacular, never nullify the decisive, Christ-exalting purposes of God. This truth is the steel God offers to put in the spine of his people as they face the worst of calamities. That evil is going to happen to us. We're going to commit it ourselves. But when evil happens to us, we always have a choice on what to do with our pain and what to do with our desperation. We can either turn to him and acknowledge that he is over everything, that he is surprised of this awful thing that just happened in our lives. But in fact, that he is at work, and whether it's childlessness, or someone who's supposed to love you who doesn't, who's supposed to treat you with love and honor and respect, but ignores you or maybe even betrays you, that you want justice, you want it right now. You know what? None of that caught God off guard. And God is going to hold you through it if you listen to him. If you don't get, and especially start to use, we love to use common sense. We call it common sense, but it's just a cop-out for not depending on God. God uses common sense. God uses common sense. Makes sense. Just go into the handmaid and get, just adopt both. No, trust him. And of course, the names of each of these children are going to be a reflection of just her bitter struggle, victory. Dan means vindicated. Rachel named these kids. Naphtali means I fought and I won. I fought her, I beat her, Is it over? What does Leah say? It ain't over. She brings in Zilpah, her handmaid, and says, go into her, and has Gad, and says, I have a troop, I have a company. And Asher means, I'm happy. I'm fighting back, and now I'm happy. But pain can lead to desperation. Desperation can lead to sin. However, God is not surprised when we sin. He doesn't cause us to sin. We do that. In fact, God will ultimately turn sin against itself. You see, from Judah, we get the son Judah. We get the Son of God. God did not just overcome evil at the cross. God made evil serve and overcome their evil. When Jesus died on the cross, he did it at the hands of despicable men. Men who had ulterior motives, who had him beaten, who had him tried, who had him betrayed by those closest to him. Evil. But the first Peter verse that Jody read earlier, God used even those men's evil actions to accomplish at just the right time. Jesus died on the cross at the perfect time. So he could say, it is finished. And the price was paid for my sin and your sin. That's the kind of steel in our spines that we got to have in a day when people are turning against Christianity, turning against Christians, left and right. And we are going to be treated unfairly. And there's going to be times when we're not going to be able to demand justice. We have to have a confidence in God and a love for people that is just uncommon. That only comes from the inside. Do you see it? Do you see God's hand? Just look at this family. And this one family. God is going to bring the Messiah out of this messed up family. He's at work. For us, however, it is so much better when we don't sin, when we just trust God in the middle of our pain, in the middle of our desperation. Just trust him. What about you? What's your problem? What's your pain? What's your desperation? Is it, I know it's immediate to want to just do something. Gotta do something. Maybe you don't need to do a thing. Maybe it's just time to trust God. Trust His hand. That even though sometimes we don't understand it or see it, just trust His hand. He's good. Last thing, God can use our mess. And just when you think, can the baby wars get any worse? Is it okay to ask that question, can this get any worse? I don't know if that's a good question. Because usually it does, you know? That's not being fatalistic, it just, there's always something worse. And it is. And we have these mandrakes. And now I know a lot of, how many are up to date on what mandrakes even are? You know? I had to go digging on this. And then, I'm just sorry, y'all, this is going to get weird and crude. But it is what it is. It's, every single word of this Bible is inspired. Okay? Even the weird stuff. That make you go, ugh. And this is going to make you go, ugh. But Leah saw that with God's help, she was prospering. Reuben was the first one, the firstborn. He goes out, he finds these mandrake plants that are supposedly a fertility drug. A love potion, number 9, if you will, an aphrodisiac. Rachel felt that they would work for her. And they're also called love apples. I'm just telling you what the thing is. In fact, the Hebrew word for mandrake is similar in the Hebrew for love. It's spoken of in the Song of Solomon along various verses, same way. But really, it's a placebo. There's no scientific evidence that this works at all. But then apparently, this was the story. I mean, did Rachel honestly think that these mandrakes was the secret for Leah? So Rachel exchanges a night with Jacob for the mandrakes, hoping that these would work for her. I mean, this is ugly. It sounds more like a dog kennel than anything else. But notice how God turns around. God has compassion on Leah, and so Leah is the one who gets pregnant, not Rachel. So Leah hired Jacob out, basically, with these plants. And so she names him Issachar, the first child, my hire. I hired you. Again, the dog kennel. Leah's hopes, though, never leave her. And the name of her sixth son here is Zebulun, which means honor, a gift. And then finally we get a girl, Dinah. We'll hear more about her later. I had some friends where I came from that had 11 girls. 11, not one boy. Don't ask me what I know. Again, though, did the mandrakes work? Did it work? No. It's clear that God is saying that the way these children come is that God gives them to her. Leah was the one who was pregnant because God made her pregnant. Rachel, if we do the math, she stays barren for another 3 more years. Again, God is accomplishing His purpose even in this polygamous mess. Finally, Rachel gets pregnant. Rachel gives birth to Joseph. I like that name. It's the one I was given. It's the one we gave our oldest son, Aaron. And his first name is Joseph. And it means God will give, God will add. And it's also a prayer. Read it. May God give me another son. Finally, Rachel turns to God. And that doesn't mean just because you turn to God that you're going to get a child or you're going to get what you want when you want it. It took her years. But God says that in verse 22, God was the one who opened her womb. God did it. When they were unfulfilled, God did it. When Leah was unloved, God met her. Saw God, all His grace. This was still the ladder that Jacob saw God, and the angels ascending and descending was still there, not just for Jacob, but for his wives, for his children. God was still there. So again, one big, happy, messed up family photo, right? Can you imagine? Real quick, Let me give you some takeaways. God will, first of all, He will turn sin against itself to be its own undoing. 1 Corinthians 15, 55 through 57. We hear this all the time at funerals. O death, where is your victory? O death, where is your sting? The sting of death is sin, and the power of sin is the law. But thanks be to God who gives us the victory through our Lord Jesus Christ. He's going to overcome sin even by using simple people to do it. Second, the end does not justify the means, ever. Instead, just trust God for whatever process He's putting you through. We never see any of the people in this whole deal until the very end say, I'm going to trust God. But God is using the pain and desperation in their lives to squeeze them in so that they get a hold of God. And they trust God for the process. Trust the Lord, what, y'all? With all your heart. And lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge Him, and He will direct your paths. Trust Him. Next year. Suffering is the process. And I know that's not cool, especially in our culture, because our culture, especially in some places in Christian culture, says that God's just going to bless you and give you whatever you want. As long as you tithe, as long as you look good, as long as you do keto, and as long as you do CrossFit and everything. I mean, you look good on Instagram, everything is just going to be great. No. But we know James 1, 2, and 3. Consider it pure joy, my brothers, when you go through trials of many kinds. God's going to mature you through that process. And He's going to use that suffering for His glory. Especially that suffering which is for His sake. Lastly, here, this is awesome. God meets the lowly. God meets the lowly. He met Leah. He met Rachel. Reminds me of another one down the line that I've got met. And yeah, Christmas has started. Mary said, my soul exalts the Lord, and my spirit has rejoiced in God my Savior, for He has had regard for the humble state of His bondslave. For behold, from this time and all generations we count Him blessed. God meets the lowly. He meets the humble, the ones who get low. In a day with so much stinking pride, let's be different. Let's be loving. Let God raise us up. Also, the shepherds were met out in the field. Simeon, another. But lastly here, Jesus, this is how Jesus kicked off His ministry. In Luke chapter 4, in Nazareth. The Spirit of the Lord, this is the reading that would take place in the Torah. It happened to be this day. He picked it for this purpose. The Spirit, this is Luke 4, he's quoting Isaiah 61. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me because He has anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. Not the well-to-do or got it going on. Everything's together. He has sent me to proclaim release to the captives and recovery of sight to the blind, to set free those who are oppressed, and proclaim the favorable year of the Lord. What about you today? In your pain, whatever your process is that God's taking you through right now, has God met you where you are? Is He meeting you where you are right now? Have you got to that place where you're saying, God, no matter what's going on, and things may be great for you right now. I know many of you are suffering and hurting in different ways. Have you said, Lord, whatever it is, God, yes, I'm yours. You may be like Keith, that he just realized he always believed in Jesus, but I got to surrender. Maybe that's you. Maybe you're like Jody, and you are running away from God as fast as you can. And you heard what He said. I had no other choice. I had to do this. Maybe that's you today. Jesus loved you so much, died on the cross for you, so that you could have eternal life. Would you surrender your life to Him today? Would you trust Him and turn to Him today? Let's stand together.